Hereby call this special council meeting to order, held Monday, March 5th at 4 p.m. This is an open special meeting to pass our budget. Is there disclosure of pecuniary interest in nature thereof? Seeing none, we don't have a closed session, so we'll move right into the 6.1. We've already had this budget in practically its entirety before council, and we've had the operating budget, and then the open house. Director of Finance, Director Valentin, is there any high-level comments you wanted to make? I didn't know if you planned on doing a summary or happy just to go to questions, because I think we've...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just like to reiterate again the responsible budget that's brought forward to you today. Very pleased with the efforts of staff and council. We have some significant items that we'd like to reiterate, that we found over $400,000 through our core services and efficiency review over 2017. We've been able to eliminate the transfer from the reserve to fund the tax levy, and over the 2 years that amounts to over $800,000. We are working on our budget survey, and it seems that we are getting the uptake, so we'll continue with that going forward and hopefully get more residents involved in the budget process. Just like to thank staff for all their hard work. We did implement the budget software this year, so it was a little bit of a challenge, but we were able to make it through, and we made significant gains this year. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have the budget recommended motion that operating budget be received, and that the operating budget be approved, and that the transfer of $454,400 allocated from the operating budget for the special roads and roads-related levy to the roads levy reserve be approved, moving it to the capital, or to the roads levy reserve. That's been moved by Councillor Back, seconded by Councillor Guido. So, questions of the budget that have not been asked or dealt with? Councillor Kett?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Great job, thank you. Now, I'm looking at the roads budget that was in operating. That was my question. So the 454, that is 1% added 2 years ago, 2% added last year, and then 4% this year, right? Like that's cumulative, right? Yeah. So that's great, but so this year actually we're taxing $454,000 for that roads, right? So that's sort of how it builds up. I'm getting that right. I'm sure I am. Now, when I was in the EDAC committee, the CAO was praising you and your staff about saving $800,000 and possibly $1 million. So is that reflected in the new budget, or is that going to be over and above, like?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, though it is reflected currently in this budget, so that was actually funding that was transferred from the reserve to help offset the tax levy. So it's now been found so the savings have been found through the budget. We've done a line item detail working the budget up to determine, looking at our actuals and looking at what the requirements are moving forward. So we've been able to eliminate that transfer.
Okay, and obviously it's a lot clearer now to what it used to be. So in the past, we were not getting some grants because we were too rich, or to say differently, so because we had too many reserves and things like that. Is that being addressed, or what?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't comment as to why you might not have gotten grants in the past. I don't know. I'm still going to be looking at all the reserves. The risk that you had by you were depleting your reserves by funding the tax levy. The reserves are set aside for a specific function. Like, for example, the roads levy, it is set aside for road specific. So in the past, prior to me arriving here, there was actually funding taking from those reserves to actually fund the tax levy, so that's been eliminated now.
Okay, so am I explaining that correctly, Mayor?
I wouldn't even begin to try and clarify what you're thinking. I don't know.
Well, thank you. Okay, that's good, thank you.
Okay. I do have a summary of this one, but if there's questions for the budget, Councillor Back?
Thank you through the mayor, and again, I was away when you had this presented a few weeks ago, but I did send an email out to thank all of staff right from entry level up that knows their departments, and I think, you know, that's one really big accomplishment of this particular council. I know there's always negative things in the press, that this council wanted a different way of doing the budget, and to have staff really be directed instead of having a big budget like this and thus whittle it down, for staff to take priorities of what they knew their department needed, what their actuals were, and it's much more stronger grasp of exactly what we need from our taxpayers to give them the service. I don't know why I'm bouncing here. So I really do appreciate that you have all staff having their hands on the budget. It actually helps as well with succession planning, because, you know, people that never did the budget or thought to do it, they're learning and taking responsibility as well and onus of their departments, and really you can see collectively everybody's on board. And when everybody's on board on that bus looking for a common goal, it really does in the end help our township. So I really do appreciate all of your hard work getting us to this goal. I have a question that's really not municipal. It's with regards to the regional portion, which I can't wrap my head around, being $4. So if our regional councillor and if our CFO can help me, and the mayor. So if it's roughly saying, and I understand the impact value assessment went down, but 58% of the portion goes regional, with a just under 2% increase being $4, and a 27% of municipal going up 3.9 is 55. So the $4 based on a roughly $400,000 home, so $1 per 100,000 assessed increase. My question is that correct? Because if it is, when I get my final statement in May or so, if my $1 per 100,000 impact value of my home, if my regional portion is more than that, what do? Do I go to the region and ask for a refund? Because it doesn't make logical sense to me, the percentage and the increase. Ours 55, $4. So please explain that to me, because I need to explain it to my constituents as well that have been asking.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So this $4 is based on a residential home in a specific class, and it's based, so the region, what we do is we take a full assessment of the entire area. So the region is taking the 8 area municipalities and having an average, the current assessment for that specific residential rate. So what they do is they assess the whole thing, they come up with a rate. Now, you can see from the chart that I have on page 2 that our assessment did go up, but our assessment didn't go up as much as other areas. So our assessment in relation to the other area municipalities went down. So they've gone up significantly more than what we've gone up. So the region is still collecting the same amount of dollars, their budget dollars, but it's spread over the entire municipality, or entire region. So our specific share is less than what the other areas are. And I would doubt that it would be $1 per 100,000. It's based on your full assessment value. It's based on this specific residential class. So there are different classes as well. But the amount this is an average. So we have to take a specific class and try and show comparators, but there are different residential classes as well.
Okay. Because I know when I get my taxes year to year, my increase is usually in the hundreds. So I was sort of hoping that it would be $4 per Or a dollar per, I'm missing my little foam thing here, that's why I don't know what
Maybe
happened
you
to
spun
it.
And I would... Did you have, I would just add to that, that just as the Director of Finance had clarified there, municipalities like Whitby, because MPAC assessed their property values of going up higher for whatever reasons, proximity to 407, or just the value, resale values, because that's what MPAC's basing a lot of their valuations on, that they are paying more than their share. So the rural communities, Uxbridge, Brock, and Scugog, had a reduction relative to, like, less of an increase than the other municipalities. So we were a benefactor of that change, but that's the average as a whole. So there might be some properties that'll have more or less of that, but you have to pick an average. So you may find that yours is even less than that, because MPAC had said that closer to Lake Shore were reduced more, so I don't know if maybe you are a benefactor of even more, so. But at the budget meeting, Commissioner Clapp did go over that some more, and he said he'd be happy to further explain, so that would be your point of contact. If your bill is different on the region, then I will liaison with you or be part of that if you'd like, and help you further get explanation if you want from the region, so that you can pass on to the constituents. But generally, it's just relative, that we are relatively less of an increase than the other municipalities, so other municipalities are picking up more of the share. Other first-time questions on the budget? Councillor Kett?
Thank you, Mayor. The only question I had, and I'm sorry I didn't ask it in the beginning, is our budget increased and our values have decreased for residential, the housing? Okay, so when I'm reading the tax rate, it's 0031, because there was more last year, so it's actually, the tax rate's down. So our values, CVA, whatever, are more?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's a tax shift, there's likely a tax shift. So in this particular residential class, the rate went down, but it's shifting as there's several different classes. There's industrial, there's commercial, there's several different residential classes, and based on the assessment, that rate will change based on the assessment for that class. So in this particular class, you can see that the average CVA did go up from 17 to 18, but our mill rate, or our tax levy rate for this particular class did go down.
I'm just reading, it says 0032 on 17, and, yeah, so the rate
And if
went
you look
down.
at the average CVA just above those rates, it went from 378,600 last year to 398,200 this year. So based on the assessment of the entire municipality and the various classes, we need to raise X number of dollars. But if the rates are up higher, it may decrease your tax levy rate.
So so I'm still sort of confused when apparently our CVAs went down. Yes.
Our CVAs did not go down, our CVAs went up. They went from 378,600.
According to Mr. Clapp, that's all.
No, our CVAs went up less than the
than
other
everybody else.
municipalities.
Okay. All right, so everybody else went up more.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's great, thank you.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted to comment on the budget, and how it provided examples of significant achievements. I'd really like to sum it up and recognize the staff delivered a budget slightly below the council's 3.9% target, and came in at the 3.86%. Adding to it also as a time when council set that target, where as we look on the page 3, that the region and the province and the education amount are less, so it's actually, the impact is 1.25% on the total tax bill on average, Scugog citizen, Scugog property tax bill. We, as a council, directed staff to undertake the core services and efficiency review, and staff were instructed to review the policies and procedures to determine ways to improve and strengthen our processes and controls, and they have delivered. Through the core services and efficiency review, as mentioned, the savings of $416,000 were realized. These savings were achieved by staff with the utilization of a zero-based budget review, combined with savings through the reorganization of the fire emergency services, new waste disposal contracts, winter maintenance policy, maximizing non-tax revenues like user fees and permits. Over the last 2 years, reserve fund transfers totaling over $800,000 were eliminated, as previously highlighted, and this allowed the municipality to work towards the building of reserves to address deficiencies and plan for larger-scale projects in the community. Staff will soon commence work on the reserve fund strategy for council's consideration. With overwhelming budget survey responses from residents, roads remain the main priority. The budget reallocated $140,000 to road maintenance budget, potholes, slurry, gravel, along with continuing the dedicated 2% levy for roads and roads-related initiatives, adding over $454,000 to the road and infrastructure reserve. I wanted to add to that the comments that I've received from the budget, and the fact that this council is allocating these funds and prioritizing the money towards roads has been well received, and when we talk about a tax increase with keeping up with inflation, but the significant portion of this going towards roads, the residents that have contacted me or I've spoken with have all been very supportive of it. So I believe we are doing what our constituents have tasked us to do. I appreciate the hard work, the dedication of our township staff to implement the council's policies, and the continued successful implementation of the township's strategic plan. There have been references to some lax policies in the council chambers, published in the paper. I want to assure the public that staff have updated many areas of policy procedures, guidelines like the new customer service policy, council code of conduct, the corporate mileage policy, the conference, convention, and seminar policy, as well as the credit card policy. Additionally, the entire budget process has been overhauled to improve accountability and transparency. Those updates and revisions come to council to review and for approval, and us as council, we've been part of this process. So on behalf of all of council, on behalf of myself, I want to thank council, but on behalf of council and the residents, I want to thank the staff for all the hard work that's gone into the budget and the process and the policy updates, and I'm very pleased, this being the last budget that I will formally be a part of, that I'm very happy to be handing it over to the next term of council with the processes that have been adopted in place and the staff that's in place, and I'm very proud to be part of it. So thank you to each and every one of you, the members of staff and the members of council, for an excellent budget, an excellent enhancement to the policies and procedures that are in place, and then adhering to our strategic corporate plan. So big thanks to all those involved. So, Mr. CAO.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for those kind words, and I'd just like to take a moment to thank council for their participation in the budget process and for setting the target and providing clear direction for staff. It's very important, and I agree with you, there's been many gains in this budget that we're all very proud of. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Diane Valentine, our Treasurer and Director of Finance, Michelle Pick, and all the finance staff, as well as the directors and staff, for their contribution to building this budget and for their review of the services to identify budget savings. You're quite correct, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Back had mentioned, this now is a team effort. The budget is not done by any one singularly person. It's done by a team of staff. It percolates down, right down to the line staff person. So they have knowledge of the budget, they have buy-in to the budget, and that way the accountability is increased. So I thank you all, council, for the direction, and look forward to your deliberation of the budget today.
Thank you. Having said that, we have a motion that's on the floor to receive the budget and to approve it and to transfer the $454,000 allocated to operating budget to special roads and roads related. Any final questions or comments on the budget? Feels like an Oscar awards acceptance speech. Well, having said that, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much for all of the work that's gone on to this process. We're now at the bylaws. We need to enact a bylaw in order to authorize the execution of the OSIF funding. I have moved by Councillor Guido. I need a seconder for that, Councillor Somerville. This bylaw read the first, second, and third time, finally passed 5th day of March 2018. Mayor and clerk hereby directed to sign same and affix the corporate seal thereto. Questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. And then the confirming bylaw for today's council, special closed meeting, moved by Councilor Drew, seconded by Councilor Watton. All those in favor? Carried. And then motion to adjourn, moved by Councilor Guido, seconded by Councilor Watton. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.